President, it's now your turn.
Thank you, Comrade Pule Mabe, and greetings to members of the media, and of course, greetings to the national officials of the African National Congress. We welcome this opportunity to be able to brief the media and indeed the nation, especially our members, about the decisions that were taken by the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, which held its virtual special meeting from the 28th to the 30th of August to take forward specific matters that included issues such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the fight against corruption, the progress that is being made on the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program, the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide, and local government, as well as our country's African agenda. The NEC received an update on the state of the coronavirus pandemic in our country and the measures that have been taken by government and many other sectors of society to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and limit its impact on people's health, lives, and livelihoods. The NEC was encouraged by the significant decline in new coronavirus cases across all provinces, as well as the decline in hospital admissions and deaths. These figures suggest that the country has most likely passed the peak of infections earlier than projected, with fewer infections and fatalities. This is due in large part to the decisive action taken in March to curb transmission of the virus and by the adherence of all South Africans to the measures that were necessary to prevent infection. The NEC mourned the lives of those who passed away as a result of COVID-19 and extends its condolences and sympathies to the families and friends of those who have passed away. The NEC paid tribute to the doctors, the nurses, health, and other frontline workers whose tireless and selfless efforts have helped to save lives and restore many patients back to life or to health. The nation owes a debt of gratitude for working under difficult conditions, at risk to their own health, to ensure that we overcome this health emergency. The NEC agreed that the safety and health of all frontline personnel must be a priority and welcome the engagements that have taken place between the Department of Health and trade unions to ensure that there is adequate supply of personal protective equipment for all frontline workers. The meeting also welcomed the decision of government to move the country to Alert Level 2 from the 18th of August 2020 and agreed that this was justified both by the decline in infections and by the need to resume most economic activities in our country as speedily and as safely as possible. However, the NEC agreed that, as is happening in many parts of the world, there remains a substantial risk of a second wave of infections as restrictions on movement and economic activity are relaxed. It is therefore vital that all South Africans remain cautious and vigilant and continue to adhere to the most basic prevention measures: wearing masks, physical distancing, as well as regular hand washing and sanitizing. Through consistent adherence by all South Africans to these and other measures announced by the health authorities, our country will be able to avoid the economic and social disruption of a return to more restrictive regulations. The ANC will continue to intensify its campaign of awareness and mobilization among communities to prevent the spread of the virus and ensure adequate care for those who fall ill. It will also campaign for widespread take-up of the National Contact Tracing app, it's called COVID Alert SA, which will soon be launched to inform people privately and unanimously if they have been exposed to a person who has tested positive to coronavirus. The NEC notes progress on the measures put in place to deal decisively with corruption related to COVID-19, including to recoup illegally acquired funds. Law enforcement agencies must leave no stone unturned in dealing with this matter. Repeat, law enforcement agencies must leave no stone unturned as they deal with this matter. Government must explore all avenues to speed up investigations and prosecutions of those and other related corruption cases. The NEC welcomed the decision by government to make public details of COVID-related contracts awarded by all departments and public entities. This is an important step towards greater transparency and accountability in government procurement. In fact, it is seen as being quite historic. The NEC commends all South Africans for their united action over the last 5 months to keep themselves and others safe. This spirit and dedication will be required in the many months that lie ahead as South Africa and the world comes to terms with this new normal. The NEC welcomed the progress that is being made among social partners under the auspices of NEDLAC to develop an economic reconstruction and recovery program. It was encouraged by the extent of agreement amongst all the partners, business, labor, community, as well as government, on the key interventions that are required and for the need to act with urgency. The NEC reaffirmed its position that given the depth of the economic damage caused by COVID-19 and the difficulties that our economy was already experiencing before the onset of the pandemic, extraordinary measures are required to protect existing jobs and to create new ones in the immediate to medium term. These include the implementation of a massive infrastructure investment program, the stimulation of local production and manufacturing, a public employment drive, and the implementation of key economic reforms. The ANC has released its economic recovery program, which combines efforts towards reconstruction with accelerated transformation, economic inclusion, particularly for Black people, young and also the youth rather, and also women, as well as to engender ways for faster economic growth in our country. The ANC government announced relief measures of an amount of 500 billion rand to deal with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. This was to deal with the health effects, measures to prevent a massive humanitarian crisis, and to provide a safety net for households, for businesses, to cushion them against the impact of the restrictions that were imposed. The 500 billion rand is being financed through a combination of revenue foregone by the government. This resulted in tax relief. It also is made up of credit guarantees, additional government borrowing, and reprioritization of existing government budgets. The ANC recognizes that while these measures have had a positive impact and continue to do so, they are insufficient to deal with the totality of the challenges that our people are experiencing right now. Challenges of unemployment, poverty, inequality, and most of all, exclusion from the economic activity which our society faces. It is in this context that the work on reconstruction, growth, and transformation should be completed as urgently as possible. The NEC will shortly convene a special Lekgotla on the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program. The NEC reaffirmed the position taken at its meeting of 31st July to 2nd August in 2020 that the ANC needs to draw a line in the sand between the organization and those who steal from the people. The NEC agreed on decisive action that needs to be taken to tackle corruption within our own ranks as the ANC and across society. In this regard, the meeting received a report from the National Working Committee on the work undertaken to collate information on the individuals within the ANC who are facing charges of corruption or other serious crimes. The NEC welcomed the report and actions being taken at various levels and resolved that these actions must be completed as a matter of urgency. This must be accompanied by public accountability. The NEC agreed that this will be a turning point in the fight against corruption and accordingly decided on the following. The NEC endorsed the contents of President Ramaphosa's letter to ANC members of 23rd August as a clear articulation of the policies and positions of the organization and agreed to the implementation of the points of action contained therein. The NEC emphasized that what seems to be a choreographed campaign against the president will not distract the movement from undertaking an intensified program against corruption and state capture as mandated by the 54th National Conference. In this regard, we will also work with other sectors of society and the broader population to confront the scourge of corruption. It also decided that cadres of the movement who are formally charged for corruption or other serious crimes must immediately step aside from all leadership positions in the ANC, in legislatures, or other government structures, pending the finalization of their cases. The officials, as mandated, will develop guidelines and procedures on implementation, and the next NWC meeting will receive a progress report in this regard in terms of how this decision is being implemented. In cases where this has not happened, such individuals will be instructed to step aside. The other decision was that cadres of the ANC who are reported to be involved in corrupt and other serious criminal practices must go to the Integrity Commission to explain themselves. Those who do not give an acceptable explanation may be suspended. NEC also decided that cadres of the ANC who are convicted of corruption or other serious crimes must resign from leadership positions and face disciplinary action in line with the ANC constitution. Other decision was that the NEC will meet with the Integrity Commission with a view to strengthen its role in restoring the values of the ANC and ensuring that it has the means and the resources it needs to carry out its mandate. Other decision was that guidelines on the ANC's approach to internal leadership contests in elective meetings and conferences of the organization will be developed, especially rules for lobbying and campaigning. This will take into account the organization's experiences over many years and will be guided by the overriding imperative to ensure that internal democratic processes do protect the movement's integrity and do indeed produce the best cadres to lead transformation. The other decision was the ANC will put in place a mechanism for leaders to make regular declarations of financial interest to the organization, drawing on existing practices in parliament and government. The system and process will need to ensure a proper balance between privacy and accountability. Other decision was that guidelines will be developed on ANC leaders and their families doing business with government and public entities. These guidelines will give due regard to the right of every person, like every citizen in our country, to engage in legitimate business activity as allowed by our constitution, while removing the potential for any ANC leaders or members of their families to derive undue benefit from political access. Proceeding from the understanding that this is a matter affecting all parties and government institutions, the ANC will also table this matter for discussion in the legislatures and encourage forums such as NEDLEC to engage on this issue. The NEC is determined that these measures should be implemented consistently and without any fear or favor or prejudice, and that they are essential steps towards renewing, rebuilding, and uniting our movement. The NEC also discussed matters that have to do with local government. The NEC received reports on local government. It also listened to proposals on electoral reform, on the process of selection of ANC local representatives, of public representatives, and on preparations for the 2021 local government elections. Now, this discussion is still ongoing because the NEC will continue discussions on these matters at a special session later in the week. NEC also discussed organizational campaigns and programs that are the lifeblood of the African National Congress. The NEC took note of the organizational campaign against racism and vowed to intensify the promotion of the principle of non-racialism in our country and to continue to fight racism and tribalism in the movement and in society. This is particularly important as we celebrate Heritage Month in September 2020, recognizing the centenaries of anniversaries of Harry Gwala, Rusty Bernstein, Vuyisi Lemini, Phyllis Ntantala, Robert Gesha, and a number of other stalwarts of our movement who have moved on. The NEC condemned in the strongest terms the killing of disabled teenager Nathaniel Julius from El Dorado Park. As a society, we are responsible for the well-being and protection of children and persons living with disabilities. The NEC also reflected on the ongoing program against gender-based violence and femicide, and urged Parliament to move swiftly in considering and finalizing the legislative amendments that have been tabled before it to strengthen measures against gender-based violence and femicide. It welcomed the broadening of engagements by men and boys on the role they can play in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, and add their voices to the call that women's lives matter. As we conclude Women's Month, we must ensure that in dealing with gender-based violence and femicide as the worst manifestations of patriarchy, we also tackle other dimensions of patriarchy, including the economic exclusion of women in the economy of their own country. When it comes to the African agenda, the NEC notes that South Africa continues to play a critical role in its capacity as African Union Chair, as led by President Ramaphosa. It welcomed the reports on work done around a continent-wide program on COVID-19, working with the AU Commission, regional economic communities around the various regions on our continent, and the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The NEC further acknowledged the impact of COVID-19 on the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area and appreciated the resumption of work to take the process of a common African market forward. It welcomed the fact that the Office of the Africa Free Trade Area has now been opened in Ghana, headed by one of our own as Director General. It also notes work being done to continue to silence the guns in Mali and Libya and ensure stability in Mozambique, Sudan, and Zimbabwe. The NEC welcomed government efforts to engage the situation in Zimbabwe, in particular, the deployment of special envoys. It emphasized the importance of the envoys engaging with all stakeholders in the country to assist in addressing the current situation. ANC and government processes must complement each other. The NEC supported greater party-to-party interaction between the ANC and ZANU-PF with the intention to develop a fuller understanding of the situation in Zimbabwe and to determine how the ANC and government can play a supportive role. It was also agreed that the ANC must speak to all parties and all stakeholders as well. Concern in the discussions was expressed at the insurgency in Mozambique. Government was urged to effectively address any security threats to this country and to provide support to the government of Mozambique should this be requested. but also importantly, that we should continue to act within the parameters and framework that have been set out by SADC. The NEC agreed that the International Relations Committee of the ANC must provide detailed reports on these two matters at its next meeting. The NEC supports the ongoing alliance campaign of solidarity with the people of Palestine in this very difficult and trying time that they are going through. This special NEC of the ANC has made significant progress in addressing critical issues of organizational unity and renewal. It has emerged from this weekend's meeting with a clear direction and unity of purpose. This was one of the better meetings that the National Executive Committee has held. The discussions that ensued in this meeting have laid a firm foundation for the organization to provide leadership on the urgent reconstruction and transformation of our economy, to sustain our response on the coronavirus pandemic, but more importantly, that the African National Congress must fight corruption, and that what the NEC decided at the earlier meeting, that it is drawing a line in the sand about fighting corruption, must be implemented. But the NEC was also equally determined that we must engage as a movement and as a membership of the ANC and as society. We must engage in the fight to end violence against women and children, and to end the femicide and the killing of the women and the daughters of our country. The ANC held a really fantastic meeting, and it is these decisions that we are willing to provide to the nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Comrade President. We do appreciate the comments and views made, the statement presented on behalf of the National Executive Committee. President, we have got members of the media here. I am going to allow them only 2 rounds of questions. National officials are here. They will be able to answer whatever questions that could come up. Members of the media, it is now your opportunity to file questions. Just indicate your newsroom, where you come from, and all of that, so that would know.
Hi, William Voko from ENCA.
When you're not asking questions, can you please mute? We are now dealing with the question from Voyo. Otherwise,
okay.
Those who speak when others are raising questions, we're going to remove them.
Okay. Mr. President,
Voyo, you can go ahead.
Yes. Mr. President, where members don't do the right thing on their own accord, whose job exactly is it going to be to ask members facing corruption charges to step aside? In other words, will there be a person, office dedicated to this task? And then the second question, in an interview I had with the SG a few weeks ago, he said he had raised with the rest of the ANC's most senior leadership a big concern he has and has evidence of, that state law enforcement agencies are being used again to fight factional battles. Did he raise this matter with you, Mr. President? And if so, what was your response? And don't such comments impugn the integrity of state law enforcement agencies? Thanks.
Okay, we're taking all questions, President. We're just going to take all questions for officials. I see, I'm watching on my participants list. Manyatela, Clement.
Thank you very much, Pule. Thank you to the officials. I have just two quick questions. The first one is to the president of the ANC. Mr. President, have you responded to the letter from former President Jacob Zuma? He seemed to be accusing you of destroying the ANC by painting the party with the same brush when it comes to corruption. He says you're trying to save your own skin. What's your response to that letter? And have you engaged with him? Do you plan on doing so? My second question is, why have you decided to approach the Integrity Commission only now? My understanding is that that's what you said to the NEC, that you will be presenting yourself to the Integrity Commission. Why now? Why didn't you do this as soon as questions were raised over the funding of your CR17 campaign? Thank you.
Clement, don't make the president to confirm things that you hear through hearsay. The president of the ANC leads the organization. We're going to limit ourselves to what the president has been addressing on. Okay, can we go on, Samkele?
Thank you very much, Mr. Pulemab. My question is directed to the president of the ANC. President Ramaphosa, can you please just give us a list as the leader of the organization of who are the formally charged ANC leaders who've got to step aside with immediate effect? Who are they in the National Assembly? Who are they in the executive? Who are they in the various provincial legislatures? On the issue of the letters, Mr. Mabu, we are going to ask this question without fear or favor. Mr. President, the NEC seemingly endorsed your letter against that of your predecessor, Jacob Zuma. Is this a showing of how strong you are in the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress? And seemingly, why is the former president now having a voice to voice out his opinions on the organization, as he did not respond to the letter that was written to him in 2009 by his predecessor, Thabo Mbeki? And lastly, on the issue of Zandile Kumete, did you have an engagement with Mtumiseni Ntuli and Sihle Zigalala on Zandile Kumete stepping aside with immediate effect alongside Michael Mabuya Kulu, laying the foundation for this past weekend's NEC? And what was your view of Tony Yenge asking you to step aside?
Okay,
Sidi wants to ask a question.
Sidi?
My question is directed to President Ramaphosa.
Wait, oh, Sophie, you are not here. I can't see you. I can't see you on the chat.
We are sharing facilities at SABC. I'm with Samkela.
Oh, that's fine. But let me take CD. After CD, I'm coming to you. CD?
Thank you so much, Pule. Hello, everybody. My first question is around the Integrity Committee. You know, at the last NEC, there was a commitment to try and strengthen it. How has it been strengthened since the last NEC? And also, Mr. President, just to try and understand this, so we do hear that you are going to the Integrity Committee, so is the SG. The one thing that's been strange, or at least misunderstood, about the Integrity Committee is that it bases a lot of what it does on what media reports are. And one might want to argue that, and I think it's an indictment of my industry, if you may, that there is a bias towards you and there's a bias against the SG. So does that not play a role in predetermining the outcomes as far as the Integrity Committee is concerned? How do you avoid that? And then my last one, again on the Integrity Committee, what does this then say after this NEC, say about the Deputy President, who supposedly was not necessarily cleared? And then what does it say about Deputy Finance Minister David Masondo? Did the NEC discuss his fate as far as the recommendations were made by the Integrity Committee? Thank you.
Okay, I've got another question from Karima. Karima, can you come in?
Mr. President, to clarify, hi, this is Karima. I want to ask a question to President Ramaphosa. I want him to clarify what he means when he says the NEC wants law enforcement agencies to act immediately. The reason why I'm asking this question is because according to an NPA report, the de Kock report, several senior prosecutors, including 2 provincial heads, are found to have acted unlawfully. Now, the president of the country appoints those prosecutors. And I want to ask the president of the ANC if the NPA, if the ANC is suggesting that the NPA address those matters to the president of the country, because it's only him that can act. And if those who are supposed to uphold the rule of law are guilty of breaking the law, surely it undermines the constitution and the fight against corruption. So can the president of the ANC ask the president of the country if the NPA has written to him about the conduct of these two prosecutors and whether indeed he's going to set up a commission of inquiry like he did with Advocate Jiba and Advocate Mukwebe? That's the first question. The second question, when the ANC NEC says members must step aside, do they accept that if a member is in a legislature or in any position, if they still receive a salary, they are in a position of power? In the case of, for example, Mayor Zandile Gumede, she might not become a member of a committee or a chair of a committee, but she's still an MPLA. She wields enormous interest and influence. So how does it signal that you frown upon her behavior when she gets to hold on to her salary and stay in her job? Thank you.
Okay, Genevieve.
Thank you, Pule. I've been covered on most things. Just a quick question regarding the decision about allegations, and when a member is facing allegations, they must go to the Integrity Commission. Was there any clarity given on what those allegations are? I mean, if there is a media report about you having done something wrong, based on that, must you go to the Integrity Commission, or is it based on just if there's allegations against you, say at the Zondo inquiry? Was clarity given on what does it mean, when, what kind of allegations? Can it be based on a media report and then you should go to the Integrity Commission? Thank you.
Okay, Farrell. Farrell, can you come in? Okay, there was a question from Farrell. I see maybe she doesn't want to ask it. Farrell? Okay, there was a question from Farrell. I see maybe she doesn't want to ask it. Alex?
Thank you very much, Pule.
Okay, Farrell, are you coming in? Alex?
Thank you very much, Pule. The question is whether the Integrity Commission can only make recommendations, or whether its findings are binding on the NEC.
Okay, that's fine. Alex, can you come in?
Thank you, Pule. Alex Winning from Reuters. The first question is, will there be a mechanism to revoke membership of the ANC for people who are charged and ultimately convicted of corruption and other serious crimes, so they don't just step aside for a short period and then return to important positions soon after? And then the second question is, how many officials is the ANC expecting to now step aside since the NEC decided that they must do so with immediate effect? Are we talking about a handful of officials here? Are we talking about dozens? Could you give a sense of the scale of the stepping aside that we're now expecting to see? Thank you.
Okay, no, that's fine. I've effectively taken all of the questions from the media. We don't have any other outstanding question. President and the officials, these are the questions that are coming from members of the Fourth Estate. All officials are welcomed to answer the questions. What I will ask the media to do is to mute themselves so that they could be able to listen to the responses that are forthcoming on the questions that shall be asked. President, Deputy President, National Chairperson, TG, DSG, SG, all of you can now answer.
Well, let me start off, and my other comrades will also come in. Maybe start off with
President is mute.
You're muted, President.
President, we can't hear you.
Am I muted still?
You are fine now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. On Vuyo Mvoko's question, that what happens when members don't do the right things and step aside, our constitution is very clear on matters like these. And let me say that much of the decisions that were taken by the National Executive Committee are embedded in the ANC's constitution. We've got rules, we've got processes that are set out in our constitution, that when certain things happen and are done wrongly, the constitution of the ANC kicks in. There are disciplinary processes, there's an IC process, and there's also a dispute resolving mechanism, and there's also an opportunity for the leadership to have conversations with members and inform them that on this issue we believe that you do need to step aside. And if a member does not want to comply, the ANC constitution kicks in through a well-established disciplinary process that is set out in Rule 25 of our Constitution. And in this era that we are now in, we expect that all members of the ANC will abide by what is set out in our Constitution and the ethos of our movement as well. When the NEC says that we are drawing a line in the sand, it basically means that we are entering a new era. We are ensuring that what the 54th conference decided on is now implemented. And I have no doubt in my mind right now that the decisions of the 54th conference will indeed be implemented, and they are in any event embraced by all members. And you asked, I think you said, who will be the responsible person or official or entity? And obviously, the Office of the Secretary General plays a critical role. The officials of the ANC play a critical role, the National Working Committee, and indeed the National Executive Committee. So you've got a phalanx of structures that will be able to deal with all these matters with even greater determination. State law enforcement agencies, did the SG raise this matter? Yes, the SG has raised this matter, and he has informed us as officials that he's concerned about some of the activities of people in state law enforcement agencies. Now, I take a dim view against people in state agencies who meddle in political matters of political parties. This is precisely what we want to bring an end to and to depart from. I take a very firm view against it and will not allow state law enforcement agencies to play politics. They must do their work without any favor, without any prejudice, and without targeting members of any political party for that matter. And if, yes, anything has been done that is untoward and which is legal, yes, by all means. But the issue of spying, the issue of targeting, listening to conversations, that must be desisted from. And I say that advisedly because I've been a victim of that as well. So I want to see that coming to an end. State agencies must never be used to fight political battles, and they must not get embroiled in the politics of political parties. And if we are to find anyone who's involved in that, we will take firm action. absolutely firm action. From Mayatula, have I responded to the letter that was penned by former President Jacob Zuma? No, I have not responded. I received many letters as president of the ANC, and this letter happens to be one of those. So I have not responded. And obviously, the letter is being debated, it's being talked about. And so I have not responded to the letter, and I don't even know what the reasoning for the letters were, and will not even publicly entertain issues that are raised in the letter, because I think it's important as leaders where we are, that if we are to engage in discussions, we should do it within the confines of our movement as leaders. Now, Samkele says, the letter is this power contest that the NEC endorsed the letter. I don't get involved. This is not a power contest. What we are seeking to do is to reposition the African National Congress, and we reposition it by adhering to our policies, adhering to implementing the decisions that were taken at our 54th conference. There's just no magic about it. It is really those decisions that were taken by the 54th conference that are in the process of being implemented. Did I have discussions with comrades from KZN about comrades Zandile Kumete and Mike Mabuyakulu? The answer is yes. As leaders, we have discussions like that. Tony Yengeni articulated a view, yes, at the NEC about the president also doing the right thing and stepping aside, and he was raising it around the CR17 funding. CD asks, how has the Integrity Commission been strengthened? We are, as we said in our statement, going to have a meeting with the Integrity Commission. And in that meeting, we are going to discuss the functioning of the Integrity Commission and how the ANC itself should interface with the Integrity Commission. We're also going to discuss how we can enhance and strengthen their work so that they can function much more effectively. And that is precisely what we are going to do. Now, CD says the Integrity Commission could be biased against the SG and more favorably disposed towards me. That is news to me. That is completely news to me. The Integrity Commission is a structure of the African National Congress that is made up of seasoned comrades in our movement, comrades who are veterans of the struggle, who know and understand the ethos and the ethics of our movement, who are able to make judgments and to analyze situations properly, and who will be able independently to come to conclusions on their own. So anybody who presents themselves to the Integrity Commission goes there having the confidence that we are talking to the elders of our movement. We're talking to people who are well-versed with the policies of our movement, with the history of our movement, with the strategies of our movement, who will be able to apply their minds on everything that any one of us has to present. And I'd like to believe, and it is so, that they will be able to act without any fear or favor or prejudice against any member. If they become biased, then they have no right to be members of the Integrity Commission, no right whatsoever. What does this say about the DP And Comrade Masondo, I don't know what this question is all about. The DP went to the Integrity Commission, had a thoroughgoing discussion with them, and obviously they have given a view, and which view really needs to be interrogated and understood fully. And in the course of our discussions, we're doing precisely the same. Comrade Masondo has also been able to appear before the Integrity Commission, and he's given a reply to them. And I think that process should be looked at in that context as well. Karima asks about the issue of prosecutors. Can the president of the ANC ask the president of the country whether the president of the country, after talking to the president of the ANC, will be able to set up an investigative commission, which obviously will be done by the president of the country, and the president of the country will have to inform the president of the ANC what the president of the country has done. Very, very complicated, Karima. The matter that has been raised by one of the key officers, de Kock, is a matter obviously that will need to be given attention by the president of the ANC, and we will pass on the message to the president of the country, so that the president of the country is able to give consideration to that. On the issue of people who step aside but continue to receive salaries, is that not giving them some measure of influence? I would beg to differ on that, because if somebody continues to get a salary and they have stepped aside, I don't see what influence that gives them. And by the way, on this issue, we do need to comply with the labor laws of our country. We have labor laws that regulate situations like these. And when a person has stepped aside and has been asked to move to the side and to take a leave of absence, we've got to continue abiding by the labor laws of our country until the matter is finalized. And once the matter is finalized, that is then that a matter of salaries or other benefits will come to the fore. Genevieve asks about allegations, and if allegations are raised against anyone, and they are just mere allegations, stories, and sometimes they can be the type of allegations that are planted either in the media, and sometimes we've seen that some allegations do get retracted, and there are legal suits that ensue between those who are alleged to have done certain things and the media. And in this regard, we say, even the media should be really, sure of their facts, but we leave that to them, no doubt. But if allegations are made and there are allegations that have weight, the person should go to the Integrity Commission. That is what the 54th conference decided, that if there are allegations against anyone that have to do with corruption or serious crimes, even before that person is charged, they must do the right thing and go to the Integrity Commission, because failure to do so could get the Integrity Commission to either call you or to come to certain conclusions. So we say that there have to be serious allegations that are of such a nature that somebody must go and answer for themselves in a satisfactory manner and open up to the Integrity Commission. And once they have done so, the Integrity Commission will give consideration to what they are saying and come to a view. And they may say, in our view, this does not need you to either step aside or take any action. But at the same time, we've got other structures in our constitution that can kick in. A disciplinary process can also be invoked against a person. Ferrier says, are the decisions of the Integrity Commission binding? Thus far, even at our conference, this is a matter that is still to be discussed and finalized. And we are going to have this meeting with the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission will be able to have a thoroughgoing discussion with the NEC. And in my view, ideally, decisions of the Integrity Commission must be binding, because the Integrity Commission is set up to look after the ethos, the values, and the ethics of the African National Congress. Alex says, will there be a mechanism to revoke, and I wrote revoke the membership? Yes. Is there a mechanism to revoke the membership? Yes, of course. There is a mechanism to revoke anybody's membership, and it's set out in Rule 25 of our Constitution, where if you are subjected to a disciplinary process, the disciplinary committee can come to a whole range of decisions, including revoking your membership, including saying you are expelled and may not join the ANC again for X number of years. So all that is set out in our Constitution. How many officials can we expect to step aside? I'm not in a position to can say now, and I think an earlier question is, who are the people that we expect should be affected by this? There are some people who have, of their own volition, already decided that they will step aside because they have realized and got to hear what the decision of the NEC is. So there are those, and we must pay tribute to such members and pay respect to them, and say that they are putting obviously the interests of the ANC ahead of their own personal interest. Am I able to count how many there will be? No. What we have sought to do is to set up a process, and a process which in its implementation will deal with all these matters. And in many ways, it is set up so that we put the issue behind us, so that it becomes automatic, so that comrades who stumble along the way and find themselves entangled in a number of issues should themselves of their own volition know that these are the rules. These are the rules of the African National Congress, and therefore I have stumbled and I need to abide by the rules that have been set up by the African National Congress. But I'm sure that other officials are ready, willing, and able to add, and I see that the national chairperson and other officials will be able to add to some of these questions.
Thanks, President. National Chair.
No, I wanted to add on two issues. The first one is Comrade Tony asking the president to step aside. That was actually a media story than a report on the NWC or the NEC of the ANC. Because in any organization, a motion is a motion when it is proposed and seconded. If one member make a comment and nobody supports that comment, it can be treated as a motion of a meeting. Now, I call it a media story because Comrade Tony made this comment in the NWC, he didn't repeat it in the NEC. But before we left the NWC, the story was ANC heavyweight asking Ramaphosa to step aside. So it was a planted story, and it became the story of the weekend for the media, but it had nothing to do with the ANC, NWC, and NEC. The second one is whether endorsement of your letter against Zuma. It's not against. I want to clear that it's not against the Zuma letter, Ramaphosa letter endorsed against Zuma. It's not. But the NEC endorsing the letter of the president affirms two organizational principles. At any given time, there's one president. And when the president communicates with membership of the organization, that is the communication of the organization. That's why every time we talked about the letter from the president, we equally emphasize the letter from the SG, which was talking to the implementation of the issues raised in the president's letter. So that was the confirmation that there is a president, and that communication is a communication of the president. And it affirms another very important principle, that it is something that is almost a taboo for any official to attack his predecessor or his successor. It's not done, because there must be a particular relationship between a successor and a predecessor. And this plethora of letters actually worked against that. For example, the reason that this letter became to look suspicious is that it follows on a letter by Anne Lungisa, it follows another letter by other group, and another thing. So it looks like a choreographed attack on the president. And we have a responsibility to actually kill a choreographed attack on the president, because he is the leader of the organization. Those are the two issues that I wanted to add on and emphasize to, I suspect it was Clement, of here they come with a false projection of unity. Unity cannot be false. It is a practical, actionable process. It doesn't mean we agree on everything. It's an organization of human beings, not of water. Because if it's water, you pour it on a slope, it goes one direction. In an organization, people use their brains, they debate and take decisions. That is it. Thank you very much.
While you are at that, I just want to add, before the SG comes in, the issue of that was asked by Mayetula about why do I go to the Integrity Commission now? I did seek to clarify this, and I don't know, maybe you missed it. I did say when I spoke to the NWC, and to the NEC rather, I said, the Integrity Commission had at an earlier stage asked me to come before them. And I had said to them at the time that shouldn't we rather wait for the processes that were underway through public agencies, such as the public protector, such as the courts, and wait for those processes to be done, and thereafter I would then be able to appear, because those processes have more resources. They would be able to look into everything, fathom everything, and they would also be able to better inform anyone else. And that was agreed to. And following that, I then felt that now that the process is somewhat completed, I should now go to the Integrity Commission myself and go and account for the CR17 process. But I will also be raising another matter that I raised almost 2 years ago. This CR17 issue came up. I did, of my own volition, suggest that it is important for the African National Congress to come up with guidelines that will regulate how leadership contests should be conducted. Because over years, we've seen leadership contests resulting in processes and actions that we had never had in our organization. And all of us just got entangled in them, got lost in them, And we now need to regulate these. And sometimes we learn from experience to curb whatever may be happening in an incorrect manner. So I will be raising that too with the Integrity Commission. And of course, it is up to the African National Congress through its own structures, as the NEC has decided to do, to come up with guidelines and regulations to deal precisely with this matter that we went through going towards NASREC. Thank you.
Pule, thank you very much. Thanks, President, officials. And let me thank the media also for having afforded us this opportunity to account to South Africans. As the President and the National Chair has said, and I always emphasize it when we have our press conferences, that maybe at times it is necessary to teach the media how the ANC works and operates. Because I heard some of you saying this is the illusion of unity. The ANC, this is how it works because it has responsible leadership. We're not like leaders of any other political party because we are a governing party, and we are more responsible than any other person. And that's why we will ensure that we work as a collective. In the National Executive Committee, we actually do what we have fought for during apartheid. People have the right to raise their views. People have the right to have different views from myself, from the president, and we such engage. And at the end of the day, we have persuasion. It's not about the numbers, it's not about the so-called factions in this. We engage, we persuade one another, we listen to sense and reason, and that's why at the end of the day, we are able to communicate decisions of the highest decision-making body in between conferences, the African National Congress. Because I think even Comrade Tony, and that's why I always say, don't have your sources within the ANC, because Comrade Tony posed a question, not just to the president. When he asked that question, he said, President, why don't you step aside? And many other leaders in this National Executive Committee. But you only capture the fact that Comrade Tony has pointed at the president. I think we need to ensure that we don't get our information from sources. And that's why today we have decided as this top 6 to come and account to you so that we actually give you what actually happened within the African National Congress. And as President has said, and as the statement says, we have discussed the letter of the president. By the way, before the president even penned that letter, we communicated, myself and the president, because we keep that interaction, we keep that touch with all of us. I do interact with the deputy president, the national chair, our office as SGO, Comrade Jesse. When we do our work, that's what we actually do. President, there are these issues. So President, when he penned that letter, he did actually consult with me, and I said, President, it does actually happen. It does make sense. This is how the African National Congress has operated many years ago. And it is still the ANC of yesterday. And what President has also said is that there are labor laws in South Africa. There is a constitution, the rule of law, the law of natural justice, and the National Executive Committee does not express any guilt or innocence on anybody because people are presumed innocent until found guilty by a competent court of law. That's what the South African Constitution says. And the ANC is part of that South African body politics, and the constitution of the country is supreme. But the ANC has its own processes, and that's why President has outlined those processes in terms of us moving forward. In fact, on corruption, President, we said We have to fight it very hard, but we must fight the corrupter, the corruptee, and the facilitator of corruption. That's what we should actually try and start doing as the African National Congress. But otherwise, there are processes within the ANC, and some of the matters which we may not be able to respond to you today, they are being processed because you want to ensure that there is fairness, there is no fear, there's no prejudice. We don't prejudice anybody. We act not in a factional way. We actually keep the character of the African National Congress. And that's why I think President have said we deal with matters within the confines of the ANC. I just wanted to emphasize those points because they are very, very important and crucial. And that's why we are also saying to the media, don't push law enforcement agencies to do what is wrong. Give law enforcement agencies the right to investigate, the right to do their work without biasness, without any fear. President have said it. I think everybody in the country, including law enforcement agencies, hear what the head of state is actually saying. And I want to close it by saying, lastly, we are in politics. And in politics, we have to understand certain things that it's not conspiracy theory. If you want to finish this movement, the ANC, you have to start at the head. We can see all those things and we are able to assess from time to time. And that's why we internally discuss matters. And we have expressed a view, all of us, that let's maintain the unity of the movement. It's not illusion of unity. And where we have to engage the president, President Zuma, officials will actually do so because we respect all those former presidents. And whenever there is an issue out there, the right thing to do is to engage. That's how the ANC has actually come into power. We respect freedom of association, freedom of speech. We interact, we persuade, we don't work. That's why we consult society. That's why we consult stakeholders. That's why we are saying to society, work with us. We want to work with you. Simple, humble leadership of the African National Congress. Thank you, Chair.
Pule.
Please come back and unmute. Pule, please unmute.
I can't see him.
Okay. In the absence of Pule, perhaps I can assist.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. We have a few more people who have their hands up. I'll just call them. Our Faith. I have Faith who wishes to ask a question. And I'm followed by Pule from ETV, and then Mesofi, Mukwena, and Tsidi, and then Samkelo coming back for a second bite. So if we could please start with Faith.
Second and last bite, DSG.
Yeah.
Faith, could you go ahead, please? Faith is not asking the question. I'll move on to Pule from ETV. Also not available. Mesofi, please go ahead.
My question is directed to the president of the ANC, who is also the president of the Republic. Mr. President, clearly the NEC did discuss international issues looking at the balance of forces. The Zimbabwe question, you did send the envoy to Zimbabwe. Can you share with us what was the outcome? And there are concerns that much as the Zimbabwean government is saying there is no crisis, but there is a Zimbabwean crisis in South Africa, judging from what's happening at the borders. And then two, on Mozambique, do you have any plans as SADC, but also as the AU, you responding in your capacity as the AU chair to deal with that security challenge in Mozambique that's likely to affect the entire region. And finally, you will be addressing the United Nations General Assembly virtually. What will be your message on behalf of the continent and the Republic of South Africa?
Thank you, Ms. Sophie. We'll take a few more questions before we come back to Samkelo. And I noticed that Ms. Sophie and Samkelo needs to do a bit of social distancing. Very close, sitting very close together. Could we ask, we will then go to Mbali from Newsroom.
Okay, my question is to the President. President, you spoke of a choreographed campaign to attack you. What do you think was the intention in that regard leading up to the NEC meeting? And coming back to the letter from former President Jacob Zuma, one would also say that it was actually bordering on basically to insult you. What will the ANC be doing when it comes to this letter? Are you planning on dealing with this on a disciplinary level? And also, just the last one from me, when it comes to the issues around corruption and those who have been convicted of corruption, can you clarify, President, whether this decision will also apply retrospectively, basically also dealing with the issues around people like Tony Yengeni as well as Andile Lungisa?
Thank you very much. Samkelo, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, DSG. My question is directed to the Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, where have you been in the past few months? South Africans have been wondering where is the Deputy President, Honorable David Dabete Mabuza. And to the ANC top six, what steps you as a collective officials of the African National Congress will you be trying to take to try and unite the divisions that are seemingly there between the successor and the predecessor, between now and the 54th National Conference? Clearly, that letter addressed to the president by the predecessor stipulates a vote of no confidence against the incumbent and says the incumbent's leadership over the ANC is seemingly ignoring all of the 54th National Conference resolutions, such as land expropriation, the nationalization of the South African Reserve Bank. How will you do to try and unite these seemingly still warring factions? And lastly, Mr. Deputy President, how is the unity campaign that you started in the ANC going? It's seemingly crumbling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samkelo. Tsidi?
Thank you so much. Can I just very quickly say to the officials, this is what we actually want from all of you, to engage a little bit more with the media. I just wanted to put that out there. But just a very quick question, few quick questions. This is said to be a choreographed attack. Can I ask from who specifically and to what end? And then just around the MPs who have been asked to step aside, is that asking them to resign or to take extended leave? As far as the SG is concerned, what charges have you been asked to appear on before the Integrity Commission? And then there's another question around the ANC Youth League. I know that there was a task team, there is a task team rather. A letter was written. I know a lot of young people in the ANC are unhappy about that particular issue. And my last one, I promise, my last one. In Gauteng, two members, two officials, one a former mayor and one a current mayor, were told to step aside based on the VBS matter. Those two indicated to media that they would be going to the NEC to ask for you to have a say, saying that they don't agree with the PEC decision. Did the NEC discuss the fate of Boyce Maneli and Mapi for Litie? Thank you, that's it.
Thank you very much. Clement, please go ahead. Clement? Okay, I will then go to Vuyo. Vuyo, you are offline.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just regarding Zimbabwe, What you said, Mr. President, earlier is in fact what the SG said over 3 weeks ago. Now, has the ANC had any meaningful engagement with ZANU-PF in the past 3 weeks? If so, what are the contents of that engagement? If not, why not? And then to the Deputy President, just in your, what is still outstanding in the matter that is from where you sit in your matter with the Integrity Commission? What is still outstanding, or what remains for a final decision or resolution on the matter? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Karima, please go ahead.
On racialism. Sorry, I have a question on non-racialism. The president spoke specifically about that issue. And given that commitment to non-racialism, I want an explanation from President of the ANC on why the mayor of Bronville, who called community members Busmans, was exempted from any kind of sanction from the African National Congress. What kind of message does it send to communities when they are allowed to be abused by ANC members, and those ANC members are allowed back into the organization? To what extent can we take the ANC seriously on being anti-racist and also being non-racial? The second question I wanted to ask was the question of the law enforcement agencies. When I interviewed the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, she made an example of the fact that often people are charged, but the law enforcement agencies take their time to investigate matters. And as a consequence of that, you can argue that justice delayed is justice denied. But the NPA has not acted on a series of cases, low-hanging fruits, on corrupt officials inside its own ranks, the police, and state capture cases. What is the NEC's view on the pace on which the law enforcement agencies, and particularly the NPA, is moving on corruption, particularly when it comes to high-profile cases? Because a lot of the people argue that whenever they come to court, the cases are pushed back. And on the other hand, you are saying you can't interfere with the process. So the NEC's view on the pace of the NPA's prosecutions.
Thank you. Kotatso, you would be the last person to ask questions, and then we will request the president and the officials to respond. Kotatso.
Kotatso Madisa here at the Sowetan newspaper. To the SG, how far is the consultation process on the reinstatement of the two Limpopo officials, Provincial Treasurer Denim Caesar and the Deputy Chairperson Florence Radzilani? When can we expect them to be back in office? And also perhaps to the SG or the president, we understand that the previous NEC had agreed in principle to establish a special court to deal with COVID-related corruption. How far is this process? When can we expect the Mr. Lamola to be starting this process? Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your questions. Comrade President, would you like to begin, or? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, DSG. The first one is from Faith regarding the envoys that I appointed and sent to Zimbabwe. What was the outcome of their engagement? The envoys indeed went to Zimbabwe. Former NEC member Sidney Mufamadi, former Speaker of our National Assembly, Baleka Mbete, and former Minister an NEC member as well as NEC member Mbete, Mwako Ramatlhodi. They went and met President Mnangagwa and his delegation. They had extensive and quite lengthy discussions. And in the course of those discussions, it became clear that we needed to have a process through which they would engage with other people. And it was felt that we should give consideration to that. And that is something that we would obviously want to see happening in the intervening period. As the African National Congress, and I think this begins to answer another question, we have decided that we should also have party-to-party discussions. Yes, indeed, the Secretary General spoke about this, and we've now reinforced the need for this, and the Secretary General will be finalizing the delegation that will be going to Zimbabwe in days to go and meet with the Zimbabwe the political governing party, ZANU-PF. In my discussion with President Mnangagwa, we discussed this, and he informed me that their Politburo wanted and desired to be in conversation with the ANC as the governing party in our country to discuss more fully the situation in Zimbabwe. And in that regard, both of us as heads of our governing parties, we agreed that this delegation should now proceed, and that our Secretary Generals must facilitate the meeting that should happen as quickly as possible. And as you heard, the National Executive Committee expressed a deep desire that when they get there, they should have an opportunity of meeting other stakeholders in Zimbabwe. And clearly, it is important that we get as broad a view of what is happening in Zimbabwe as we possibly can. Because as you correctly say, we are having to deal with a situation on our borders. The concerns that you articulated, we are continuing to feel them on our border. And it's important that as neighbors, we're able to discuss these types of matters so that we see the extent to which we can be supportive of one another in whatever shape or form. So that is going to be proceeding. I'm sure that we will be able, as we approach the matter on all sides, we'll be able to get to grips with the situation that is unfolding there. With regard to Mozambique, are there plans to deal with the security challenge? Yes, at the SADC level, yes, the matter has been discussed quite extensively based on briefings from Mozambique itself. And as you well know, President Nyusi of Mozambique is now the chair of our region, SADC, and we are involved through various other SADC structures to be well informed and to see the extent to which plans can be put together to deal with the security challenge that we are facing there. We're going to go to the UN General Assembly, and what message will we be taking to the UN General Assembly, which will be held, as I believe, on a virtual basis? Yes, we will be taking a message from our continent. It is a message that has to deal with the challenge that we now face of COVID-19, the health challenge that the entire continent is facing, but also the economic challenge that the continent is having to deal with, particularly in relation to the debt burden that many countries on our continent have. And we will be calling for a moratorium of the debt and even a cancellation of debt, and that there should be standstill agreements that can be struck for a period which we initially thought could be 6 months or 1 year. In fact, now that we can see the impact of COVID-19, it should actually be longer. It should actually be even 4 years. And we should also be advocating of countries in our on our continent. Mbali.
President, you are on mute. I'm sorry.
Yes, I thought on Mbali's question on the choreographed attacks, I thought that the national chairperson answered that question, and I would like to leave it at that, unless the other officials also want to answer. The letter you say was an insult to me, and what will the ANC do in the form of a disciplinary process? No, we are not going to go that way, and I don't see it as an insult. I'm not that easily insulted, much as people can stand on mountains and hills and seek to insult me. I'm not easily insulted because the burden of leadership is that you must be able to get members and others to be able to express themselves. Sometimes you don't like what they say. And as they say in Afrikaans, die hoogste boom vang die meeste wind. The highest treetop catches the fiercest wind. And I take it as par for the course. There will not be any disciplinary process, no. We will not go to that level. We will not descend to that level. In fact, there will be discussions that will ensue around this matter. Discussions that should be fairly straightforward and friendly and comradely, rather than discussions that will be underpinned by dislike for one another, hatred for one another, and all that. Will the issue of corruption have a retrospective effect? We did say that the NEC charged the officials to report to the NWC about all these matters that have to do with discipline. Better still, that have to do with comrades who may well find themselves on the wrong side of the type of behavior that the ANC expects. And once that has been done, it will be presented to the NWC, and the full effect of that will then be looked at. CD asked the same question.
President, you have muted.
I think there's an automatic muting process that is underway. I don't know who amongst the journalists is controlling it.
The host.
CD asks about this choreographed attacks, and I think we've answered that question. And should those who are members of parliament be asked to resign or to take leave? I think in the end, it is going to depend on the extent of what is involved. We're going to be involved in a process that leads to the implementation of our resolution. And we are going to be quite structured. We're going to be quite methodical about dealing with these matters. On the Youth League matters, I'll leave it to the SGO to answer. I did answer Vuyo's question about, has the ANC had any meaningful contact with ZANU-PF? That I have answered. On the issue of non-racialism, particularly as it impacts on the disciplinary process that ensued in Bronville, particularly the mayor, this matter is being discussed. We take the issue of non-racialism seriously in the African National Congress, and we are obviously concerned about any type of negative and insulting statements that can be made by ANC leaders against sections of our community. So the ANC is very clear and firm on that. And it was for that process that the mayor was subjected to a disciplinary process. And the matter is continuing to be handled, and we will find a solution around that. On the NPA that Karima has asked, the NPA has not acted on many cases. I think the NPA will confess that they are the first to say that in terms of stabilizing the NPA, they are having to address a number of issues. Great progress is being made, and the NPA was targeted in the past for destabilization, for weakening, but we are strengthening the NPA. We are repositioning the NPA, and to have appointed the Independent Directorate of Investigations is also important, and to have actually also given them the powers that we have of an investigative nature and a prosecutorial nature is an important step towards dealing with cases of corruption. And when the NEC says that we must make sure that the NPA and all these other agencies do their work, and they do their work without any fear or favor or prejudice, we are serious in saying so. But we are also saying that we want those institutions to be strengthened, to be able to do the work that they are meant to do. It is only through independent institutions that are strong, that are capable, that we will be able to deal with corruption effectively. And yes, I still stand firm on this. The President of the Republic cannot be a prosecutor, cannot be a person who arrests, and cannot be a judge. All the President can do is to strengthen institutions and allow those institutions to do their work. Similarly, the ANC holds the same view, and it is firm on this view, and we must allow those institutions to do their work, and we must strengthen them. We will continue to strengthen them. They've had budgetary challenges. The budgetary allocation that they have had has not been sufficient. They have a huge backlog of cases, and they also have staff shortage. Many positions have not been filled, and of course, they're also having to deal with some within the NPA who may well have done things in a particular way, who still need to be looked at so that they commit to the new order. So that will be looked at more carefully. Kgothatso says the SG will answer this question regarding the consultation process with regard to the BBS two colleagues or comrades. And all I can say on this is that the consultation process has been handled. It's nearing finalization, and this process is underway, and shortly it will come to a conclusion. You also asked Kgothatso about special courts on COVID-related matters. It revolves also around the issue I've addressed, the financial capability or empowerment of all these institutions is a key matter that we are currently looking at and examining. Myself and the Minister of Justice, as well as the Minister of Finance, we're looking precisely at this matter because the COVID-related cases are piling up and they need to be handled very, very quickly, transparently, because that is what our people expect. I'm expecting that we will have an answer shortly. I do think there is a need to prosecute these cases on a special basis through a specialized type of court process, but it requires the financial capability which we are looking at the moment. Comrade DSG rather, that is, I think the questions that were directed partly at myself, and I'm sure that the other comrades will be able to answer other questions.
DSG.
Comrade Deputy President, please, if there's any question you wish to answer.
Thank you, DSG. President, officials, members of the media, thank you very much for the opportunity. Two or three questions, two from Samgelo. One on my health. I must say that I took ill for a period of a month. It's merely because of my health condition. And I was in the good hands of doctors in the country. So I came back. This, I think, is my 10th day at work. And my health situation is improving. So I'm grateful that I survived. Some of our people already were circulating information that I'm dead. Well, I'm still alive. It was a very, very difficult situation. Of course, if you're ill, it's not an easy situation. Your second question about the unity of the ANC. From where I'm sitting, I can say the ANC did well from Nasrec to date. Of course, you'll realize that in between, we take some few steps forward, and at times we take few steps backward. But overall, I think the president has led the ANC very well to date, given all the challenges that we had pre-Nasrec and after Nasrec. And I must commend the officials for really sticking together under difficult conditions. Well, at times I can see it's difficult, but all influenced by our environment. I can tell you that the media also was not very helpful. You can see in the kind of discussion that we are talking about today, there's an issue about Comrade Tony, what was said in the meeting, the context in which it was said. It is not the context in which it is reported. So certain issues get exaggerated and become very difficult for the ANC to handle. Of course, in certain instances, the media is spot on. I think our biggest challenge that we need to deal with as the movement is the ability to focus on the priorities and the responsibilities that are before us and stop to be inward looking. And I'm sure the president is very helpful. We're grateful that he's doing everything in his power to really unite the organization. Of course, assisted by the officials. And I'm sure that down the line, we are going to win this one, though difficult. It's difficult, but we're going to win it. It's our mission. and I think we are equal to the mission. It's not an easy mission, given all the challenges that we have gone through over the years, right from Polokwane to date. The question from from Vuyo, well, you'll remember, Vuyo, that I decided to step aside. Of course, having spoken to the officials, insisted on the officials that I must step aside and allow the Integrity Commission to. We had a very thorough-going discussion with the president, and finally the president agreed, allowed me to step aside. And the entire officials allowed. And the president spoke to the Integrity Commission to say, allow all these comrades an opportunity to present themselves, of which they agreed, and we presented ourselves. So I made my presentation to the Integrity Commission. Of course, with some discomfort in the process at which they have arrived in their own decision, and the very fact that in the process, I was never called. According to them, I was not supposed to be called. I was supposed to present myself. I think we discussed that, and we found one another. And then I left, went back to the officials. Then the Integrity Commission wrote their own report about all the engagement which they had with all the comrades that presented themselves before them, seeking to say these comrades can proceed and be do their work in the different legislatures. That was presented to the NEC. It's in that regard that I was allowed to go back to Parliament. I've never insisted to go back. I was prepared to go the extra mile, deal with all the issues that are raised by the Integrity Commission. So from where I'm sitting, maybe there might be new issues, but we're always prepared to listen to the Integrity Commission, and we're always prepared to step aside when we're called upon to step aside. So there should be no qualm. There should be no issue really that seeks to say we are undermining the Integrity Commission. That is why the president is leading by example, going there himself after discussing with the Integrity Commission. So all of us, when called upon to go to the Integrity Commission, we will go. All members of the organization will do so. We need just to strengthen our processes. We're still going to meet with the Integrity Commission to iron out a few issues so that whatever we do, there should be some sequence and coordination in the public space. So yes, I'll await for the next bite if I'm called by the Integrity Commission. But as of now, I think the matter was concluded. Thank you very much, DSG.
Thank you very much, Comrade DP. Comrade SG, I will leave you to round up. I'll ask I'll ask the national chair and the treasurer if they'd like to make a comment before you round up with the question on the Youth League. Comrade Vedamantash?
No, not much, except that on VBS consultation, we'll finish that process off. And then when we finish it, I would imagine that the media will be briefed. There can be no further details on that. On my phone policy, again, people have been subjected to a process. They want to appeal, and they must be allowed to do so. And we can't announce outcome before the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade National Chair. Comrade Paul Mashatile.
Thank you very much, Comrade DSG. I'm largely covered by the President and the other comrades. I think we should also emphasize that the NEC spent a lot of its time this weekend dealing with the issues of the economy and creating jobs. The documents on economic recovery was presented and discussed thoroughly. I can say that the media is not so much interested in those questions today. Perhaps, Comrade DSG, we need another session with them. So that I think our people must understand that we're not just only focusing on issues of cleansing the ANC, dealing with corruption. Yes, we must do so, but our people out there want jobs, want employment, and those issues are on the agenda as we speak. And we will have to explain more the implementation that is taking place. Because an impression might be created that we are inward looking, we are busy looking at issues affecting ANC leaders, etc. I think the President, when he started with the briefing, he did indicate that there was a very detailed discussion on economic recovery. And I think we'll need another session just focusing on this matter, because I think it's very important that we get our economy right, we get our country back on its footing again. State organs will continue to look at issues of corruptions, where there's wrongdoing within the ANC, those processes are ongoing, comrades will account, and so on. So I thought I should add that, Comrade DSG, that let's not lose sight of the important work that the NEC did this weekend, which is rebuilding this economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, TG, and also the issues around local government,
Yes.
and that we will be having another discussion, further discussion next week, Sunday and Monday, and after which we can have another briefing with the media. Comrade Secretary General, are you ready?
Thank you, DSG. Thanks once again to President and the entire officials, DP, and the media and South African society. I think comrade officials have responded to most of the questions. And what the Treasurer General of the ANC is saying, Comrade Paul Mashatile, is that probably our people out there wanted to hear what the ANC is saying around the economy, want to say about COVID, want to say about poverty, gender-based violence and femicide, unemployment, inequalities in South Africa, nation building, non-racialism and non-sexism, because these are the issues in these 3 days which we have discussed. And that's why it is always important when you brief South Africans, because we use your platform to inform society so that everybody in South Africa, black and white, know that the ANC government is seized with all the challenges they are facing, be it challenges of water, electricity, wherever they are. Comrade Gweda has responded, National Chair, to the issue of consulting, the issue of Comrade Danny and Florence, I think that response and voice and my pay for, because the ANC has processes, and President said that we have a constitution, and that constitution guides us. So it was, I think it was important to just highlight these matters. The fact that the poor, the working class have been marginalized in the economy. And if those type of questions, I think they were very important for us to, the achievements of government, because we are not passing that message of the achievements of government in terms of COVID, what government has done up to so far, how government has used this money. You're not allowing us to give you more information, but government, I think, will give you that information. The NYTT, the youth, work in progress, process, we always process our discussions. And I think we are busy with engagement because we want the young people, if it was not covered by now, the young people could have gone preparing themselves to do a conference. They are still preparing themselves. We are looking to the matter, and we will be updating you from time to time. The last question, and I listened attentively to the president, and Karima, I think that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that what the president has said, and the president was not just careful, he was saying what is actually the right thing to say. He said, if there are people in MPA that may have done something wrong or some things wrong or acts of whatever, those people will be dealt with. But I hear you saying corrupt officials. And this is what we have been defending. Maybe we better use alleged corrupt officials so that you don't become a court of law because images are sometimes tarnished when there are no facts. Because we always say, if you have facts, as South Africans, the law binds you to say, go and report any criminality to any law enforcement agencies. So let's leave them to do their work. And I think don't rush them because they want to ensure that when they charge a person, they have successful, they will actually be successful in terms of what they are working. Otherwise, I think it was good questions, DSG. The issue of the integrity, I am in touch with the Integrity Committee.
Thank you very much, SG. Thank you very much to all the officials, and especially thank you to all the journalists and newsrooms and TV houses that came to be with us today. And hopefully we'll see you again quite soon. This ends our press conference. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you very much, DSG.
Ah, you re-emerged. Thank you, Pule.
I was here, DSG. I've been here.
What happened to you, Pule?